Hi, welcome back to the Chamber of Spoilers. Today we're going to be discussing my best reads of 2020. I am going to get ahead of myself real quick because there are a bunch of authors that I read this year who I read like maybe 6 of their books, and I don't want to go through and be like, I love this one, I love that one. If I'm going to write like a retrospective, I'll probably do that on my blog, but I don't want to just go through. Basically, this is this year's angels, authors who I would read everything that they put out forever and ever. Thank you very much. So Courtney Milan is an angel. She's also a great Twitter follow. If you don't already follow her on Twitter, you should. She is just so clever. If you already didn't get that from like reading her banter, she is just sharp as a tack. And I like her very much. I read everything she writes. I think she's amazing. Her Brother Sinister books might be my favorites, although I did this year read The Duke Who Didn't, which is just so wholesome. It's really what I needed this year. Tessa Dare is also an angel. I love her so much. I've read, I think, everything she has out, including like The Castles Ever After, which are like some of her older things. Other authors who I stand this year, Eloisa James is an angel. That might just become my catchphrase. X person is an angel. I love her so much. I read this year the first thing that I've ever had of hers, which is, I believe, My Last Duchess, which was lovely. I really love how they talked about like kids in these books and how the kids are characters and not props. Like, I really hate like kids that essentially could be played by dogs in the narrative. That's really annoying. I really enjoyed reading her books. And I'm definitely gonna look further into that. I can't pick an individual one that's my favorite. I really like the Duchess books. Those are really fun. I am really excited about this because I have already talked about the things that I really did not like reading last year. And since it's January now, I'm excited to reflect on what I read last year, what I really liked, what I really didn't like. Is already kind of out there. So I'm excited to actually, spew some positivity out there. Okay, so I'm going chronologically from the beginning of the year. So the first thing that I really loved reading last year in 2020 was Burned Bright by Patricia Briggs, which is part of the Alpha and Omega series. I really love her books. I will say that I enjoy the Mercy Thompson books a lot. I do find that they're a little darker than I like to go, just because Mercy Thompson's life is pretty bad. And I also really just enjoy the wholesomeness of the Alpha and Omega books. I love that they're mostly romance-based with like supernatural vibes, and like, I mean, it is very much a supernatural series. They're also really about like Anna and Charles's love, which is like, I really enjoy like a soft, taciturn male character who's not like fussed about being an alpha male, even though he like does have that going on for him. I love Charles's like wholesome masculinity. I read Grave Mercy by Robin Lefevre. I actually read a lot of YA this year because I was taking a class for my master's degree. I really love Grave Mercy because it has a morally gray heroine, and you see that a lot more these days, but this was in the early 2000s, and like I think that like 2010 maybe when this book came out, and she has a whole series, and I really love it. I also love books that bring in alternate mythologies, because this book takes place in France, in a region, I think Brittany, and it takes place with like kind of alternate gods, like the god of death for this region. And I think that's super cool because so much of fantasy is based in Christianity, which is not my bag. So many of the building blocks of fantasy are based in Christian mythology, even in like Gaelic mythology, like stuff that is very white. And while like, the Gaelic people aren't people of color, they're certainly not like overrepresented in media. I thought it was really cool to read about like, deities that I've never read about before. I love mythology. I love, like it kind of reminded me of Tamora Pierce books, who I loved reading growing up. So I was super into that. I loved reading it. I'm definitely going to get to the other ones at some point. My TBR is till 2023, but I will get to it eventually. Almost American Girl by Robin Haas. So that is a graphic novel, young adult book. Although I do think that like it can pretty much cross. I think anyone could, maybe like 12 and up, could enjoy this book. I think there's a lot of books about the immigrant experience when it comes to like poverty, and when it comes to a discomfort you feel and like feeling different. But like in this book, Robin essentially creates a new identity for herself as an American. And while that does, like that is in media, I feel like young adult media doesn't talk about the immigrant experience as much outside of like the dangers it presents. This is about like learning to thrive in a new place and like becoming the version of yourself that you will as an adult in a new place. And I really enjoyed that about it. The Epic Crush of Genie Lo is another YA book that I loved, another mythology book. I am so predictable. So this book is about a young woman who finds out that she kind of has a really important role in kind of a world-ending, like, mythological disaster. And like, she also just doesn't take any shit, which I appreciate in any female character. I think a lot of the time when young women are thrown into situations that they're not prepared for, you see them becoming overwhelmed, and you do see that. You do see her, Genie. You do see Genie doing things that aren't good for her or the people she loves, but it's really important that like she be allowed to make those mistakes and she still be allowed to like succeed. And I think this book does a really good job of that. And also I think it's probably really great for people who like really like Yang's books, like Boxers and Saints books. I think so many mythology books feature male leads. I would not discriminate in recommending this by gender. A lot of books are targeted for a female YA audience, and I know that a male YA audience wouldn't enjoy it as much because it is so relentlessly pursuing a female demographic. This book is not one of those. I think it's 100% available for young men. Spoiler alert by Olivia, back to romance. I'm a little biased because I got to interview Olivia and she's lovely. I really enjoyed talking to her about her book. Spoiler alert, that came out this year, and I've read a bunch of her other stuff that came out in the last couple of years. She writes really wonderful books about women who are fat and who are still loved, and women who are fat and who are able to have really wonderful careers and to be really established in their lives and to be happy. A lot of the time in like romance or self-help, the journey for a fat person is to not being fat anymore. And in a lot of ways it reminded me of Good in Bed, because you know, the characters, while their lives are kind of shaped a little bit by their size and the way people perceive them, it isn't a defining feature of who they are as a person. Like, they are fat and that is their life, but it doesn't mean that their life isn't worth living. It doesn't mean their life is bad. It doesn't mean they're unlovable. It just means they're a person who's fat. And that shouldn't be revolutionary. It really shouldn't be. This is 2021 and this is who we are. America, we do so good. Finding fat positive romance has been difficult for me. I know that there is a lot of body positive romance out there, but it's not always what you're looking for. Like, a lot of the time the woman doesn't really appreciate her own body. And what I like about Olivia's books is that the heroines are not self-hating, and that they appreciate what they have to offer the world, both with their physical beauty and in just themselves. And I really like that. I really like a confident, self-aware woman. Wow, No Thank You by Sam Irby. I think this is the only nonfiction on the list. Oh my goodness, Sam, way to go. I do read a lot of nonfiction because it's kind of an occupational hazard to pick up books at my work. But I love Sam Irby. I've read, I think, everything she has out. I love her so much. I love her work. I find her to be so clever. And also just like her vulnerability is impressive. I think that it's easy to be vulnerable when like your pain is something that people find approachable. But Sam Irby is chronically ill and she writes a lot about that. And she writes a lot about how like being that person isn't like the easiest thing in the world, and like how she's always going to experience that. Like, for a lot of people writing about illness, physical and mental, it's about the journey from being ill to being well. And she really writes well about how that's not the journey for her, and for a lot of people, her journey is like to her best day, which I like, because I'm also chronically ill, and that's something that like is not gonna go away. But like understanding that the journey isn't always from a weakness to strength, and recharacterizing what strength is really important in nonfiction writing, especially about women. I don't want to call her like brave, because that's kind of a cop-out for Black women, and also for women who are fat and women who are out there about their problems. I don't think saying she's brave is fair to her, because like that's essentially saying you should be ashamed. Congratulations on not being ashamed, you're brave. I think we can call her bold because she puts it out there. A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This one I think is a little controversial because Naomi Novik is not a person of color, and she was writing a character of color, a mixed race character. And mixed race characters in media can sometimes get criticized pretty heavily. The character is white and something else, focusing on the white side of the family and erasing the character of color's backstory as a person of color, and kind of erasing that part of their culture. I didn't personally have problems with this book, but I am not Desi, so I don't know. I don't know if she had sensitivity readers. I do think that it was a really good read. I enjoy magic school books. I'm a huge fan of magic school books because probably of my formative experiences with Harry Potter. And also, like, it felt really special to me because, and this is gonna be sad, just as a forewarning, I always knew that there wasn't a place for me in that world. Like, I know there's a lot of problems with Harry Potter that are outside of diversity. Like, there's a lot of issues with Harry Potter and with J.K. Rowling that are not about diversity of religion. But, like, as I've said previously today, fantasy is built on Christianity. Like, the building blocks of fantasy, even just the ones that everybody's read, Lord of the Rings, C.S. Lewis, like, these books are built on the foundations of Christianity and written by guys who wrote a lot about theology. Like, I find it really difficult to find a place for myself in fantasy. I recently tweeted about this and I got some really wonderful responses, so thank you to Jewish Twitter. I love you guys. I think that this book is special because it makes space in the fantasy world for characters of color and characters of other religions in the magical world. And maybe that wasn't necessarily Naomi Novik's place, but I really enjoyed the book. I'm really looking forward to the next one. I wrote a really nice review of it because I really love her work, and I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what she does next. But again, I'm not a Desi person. I'm not from India. I am as white passing as they come. So I don't really have the authority to speak on whether what she did was offensive. I've seen some white people say that it's offensive. I don't think I've seen a lot of people of color talk on this. But if you find anything, I would appreciate knowing. Accidentally in Love by Belinda Misson. I really loved this book. Going into it, I wasn't super excited because it seemed like the usual girl moves back home after breakup, girl falls in love, there's some emotional attachment stuff. But I really loved it. I thought it was super well written. It like used the tropes of the genre without like hamming it up. I thought it was such an original book and I loved it so much. And I also love reading about like people who are super into their art, like whatever their art happens to be. Are you a carpenter? Are you a plumber? I don't care, as long as you're into it. It seems amazing. I thought the male lead was pretty great. It kind of struck me as kind of a Pride and Prejudice-esque experience. And I really loved the family in the book. I was just super into it. I think everyone should read it. I think I wrote a review for them for All About Romance, but I'll link. Lore by Alexandra Bracken. This book is actually, I think, just coming out or coming out this year. I read an advanced reader's copy. I loved it. I think more female-centered mythology. I am so into it. I love this book. I love the main character. Again, a little morally gray, but like very, like her motivations and her understanding of the world are so clear. She's so wonderful. I love her. I really loved this book. And I think everybody should read it, especially like Percy Jackson type fans, people who love mythology of any kind. I think this is a really great read for that demographic. I've not read anything by her before, but I know Alexandra Bracken is kind of a giant in the fantasy space. I am sure she will do more in the future. And this is a standalone book, but I really enjoyed it. I wonder if maybe she'll write like in this universe again. You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hochul. This is not original. Everybody loves this book. It made a huge splash this year. I have an advanced reader's copy of her next one. And I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to read it. I loved this book. I think what was especially special about it, wow, look at me, English major. I think what was especially special about it was that it was another original pairing of like a couple that has lost their magic, a couple that isn't happy together anymore. Most romance, at least these days, is like, even like second chance romances is about a couple starting out together and like getting to know each other and like falling in love for the first time. But I enjoyed a romance that was about a couple that were already established, like falling in love again and having it be better. I really loved that. And also I really loved how like the main character grows and how she acknowledges not being a great person. I love also that she's like a normal human being. Like she works at a shop, she's a retail person. I like how her partner is also kind of going through a mid-20s crisis. Like I like how they're very real. And Like, it's a romance that, like, you could easily see this happening to somebody you know this couple. So I really liked that about it. Lastly, this is the thing that I read the most recently, I think, another romance. Like I said, this year was the year of romance for me. Vixen and Velvet by Loretta Chase, who is also an angel. I just wanted to mention this book specifically because this is one of hers that I loved. So I'm really interested in the rest of this series. But it is about these French dressmakers who find love in the Ton. They are not especially, like, I don't know, I didn't get like everything that I need to know about their family history from this book because it is a trilogy. And then there's a fourth book about someone who isn't part of their family. I really like reading about different class, like, structure stuff in historical fantasy because a lot of it is like, he's a duke and she's a governess, or he's a duke and she's a marquess's daughter, or he's a duke or he's a marquess and he's gonna be a duke someday because blah, 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 narrative. I like the glamour. It's glamorous. It's fun. It's Gossip Girl. I don't always like the glamorization of that wealthiness. The heroine of this book, the main character, is wealthy. She is established. She is fairly young, but together with her sisters, she's established this, this reputation of success. So those were the things that I really loved reading this year. I look forward to reading a whole bunch of new things next year. I try to read in the neighborhood of 100 books each year. This year I got to 105, which is great. In 2021, I've already read 2 books in the first week and a half of January, so that's good. But I've got like so many things in my queue. It's a disaster. I'm hoping to like make some headway, but I'm not enthusiastic about how much work I've set up for myself. I'm excited for this year. I think there's just gonna be so many wonderful things coming out, but I am very worried. So thank you for tuning in. If you're interested in any of the reviews I mentioned, they will be linked. Bye.